Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to do a video regarding tips I've picked up along the way when trading funded futures accounts. Funded futures present an incredible opportunity for traders with limited funds to trade beyond their means. It's also a great way to limit risk and become eligible for great tax benefits without needing to start an LLC. However, funded futures are geared towards a specific type of trading style and are easier to pass if you stick to this style. In this video, I'll go over those nuances to help you get funded. Before we get started, I'll leave several discount codes for trading services I use in the description, including Sonar Labs, TradeEdX, Voland, and Elite Trader Fund. Lastly, if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like and subscribe to help me grow this channel. Also, be sure to hit the notification bell to get notified whenever I post a new video. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is starting with paper first. Now, the whole idea of a funded futures account is you don't necessarily have to risk your own money. You are risking someone else's money, but you have to prove to them that you can first pass an evaluation. So before you go spending your own money to get a subscription to start an evaluation, I recommend ensuring that you yourself can pass it and you have the proper skills to do so. So what I would recommend doing is opening a TradingView account with a minimum of $500 in it, which you're actually not going to use to trade. Now you will need to buy a data subscription for $9 a month, and then you can basically at that point you can go into TradingView, set up a demo account, and just have it match one of the evaluations that you're going to attempt to pass. So a perfect example of that would be if we go to Elite Trader Fund. We can see the different types of evals that they offer. And so say you want to try to pass a 75K evaluation. Well, before you go spending $185 a month on that evaluation, we can see the profit target and drawdown restrictions here, as well as your max positions that you can use. So 10 minis or 100 micros or whatever it would be. If you go and set up a demo account in TradingView, which you can see their pricing here, and that $500 is the minimum required in order to be able to trade. And you can actually trade your demo account with live data like you would actually trade it and make sure that you can meet that requirement. So you want to make sure you can hit that profit target before exceeding the drawdown limits, and you just want to match that type of account. Trust me, it will save you many resets, it will save you a lot of heartache, and it will help you grow along the way without really risking a dime, besides that monthly data fee. So that's a very important tip, and that is the first one. The second one is, once you do start your evaluation, is making sure that you have proper sizing. So for your first eval, I'd recommend just getting the cheapest one, the 10K eval, and trying to pass that. And it's pretty straightforward. You can do 1 mini or 10 micros, which I'll talk about in a second. Your profit target is $12.50 with a max trailing drawdown of $1,000. The trailing drawdown is skewed towards scalping. And so, but before I get into that, actually, I just want to say that it's best to stick to micros, right? Keep it relatively small at first. Try to avoid emotion. If you are getting emotional, even on this evaluation account, it means that you have way too much size. If you're not holding positions long enough, or you're exiting too early, or you're missing trades because of it, you need to size down. So I'd recommend starting with micros, which you can do. If you go in, you can choose, instead of choosing ES or MNQ or NQ or ES, you can choose MNQ or MES or whatever asset you want to play. Do the micro version of that, and just make sure that you're sticking to those micros initially. And what that means is, once you do pass and you do get that 10K funding and you start making money with it, you can always go in and get a larger evaluation and pass that one, because you already know that you are capable of passing these evaluations. And TradingView actually offers Elite Trader Fund and TradingView actually offer a group trading feature, which I personally use. So it lets you split your positions. So I could do one mini position on my 10K eval, and then do 7 or however many, 5 many positions on my 50K eval, and trade them at the exact same time with one interface, which is an amazing feature. So there's no reason to go right for it. Just start with the small cheap one, make sure you can pass, and then you can always add on a second account later that you can trade at the same time. The third tip is scaling. So one thing I love about TradingView is their bracket feature. So I have this auto scale bracket feature where I can go in and say, okay, I have 5 positions, and this would be for this one account. If you're doing the group trading, it's a little bit different the way it's configured. But just for your one account, I can say, okay, if I open up 5 positions, I want to exit 3 of them at 1-to-1 risk reward, exit another one at 2-to-1 risk reward, and then exit a third at 3-to-1 risk reward. And if I go in and set that limit, you can actually see if I were to place a sell order here, we can see this is where it puts my sell stops. This is where it puts my take profits. I can slide those around. I can get rid of them, and it makes sure that I am securing the bag along the way as the move occurs. The other factor to consider with, in particular, when you're trading on a funded account is that trailing drawdown. Now, the way this works is if I were to enter a trade and make $300 in profit, but I give 100 back, all of a sudden I've lost 100 of my trailing drawdown. Now, on the next trade, I can easily make that back and get my trailing drawdown back up to what it's supposed to be. So it's only becomes a problem if you get consecutive losses. But what I found is it's actually better to exit the trade entirely, take your profits, and then look to re-enter, just so you can maximize the profits that you're taking while minimizing any sort of drawdown. So for instance, if we look at 1222, which was a big bearish day, as we made these legs down, we could take profits at the levels that we have drawn. And if you're curious about these levels, they're fantastic to use on futures, and I did recent videos about these. But as we take those profits and we're in consolidation, we can exit at a level when we see it holding, and then we can enter with a limit order the next level, essentially get back in the trade and ride the next leg down and do it again. And that will help ensure that we're securing the bag, we're taking profits, and we're not risking going too deep with the trailing drawdown. Part of that is also solved by just scaling out. So the whole idea of this trailing drawdown that they have in these evaluations is that it enforces good scalping practices, basically. So it's best to get used to those sooner than later. Also, I recommend if you are trading futures on a funded account, you're looking to get funded, and you're doing an eval, try to stick to the best time frames. So you can do the Asia Open, so this is in Eastern time, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. The London Open is 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. These are great if you have a full-time job. Same with the morning sessions, depending on the hours you work, 7:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then I would just skip the choppiness we usually see in the lunch hour unless it's a strong trend day, and then maybe focus on the afternoon hour. And try to, if you do have a full-time job, try to figure out the best time frames that work for you, where you can focus on capturing those times where we have the most volume. As we could see, we always have a large amount of volume at the beginning of the day, and it dies off in the middle of the day and then picks back up. And we want to try to take advantage of that. And the same is true for overnight trading. If you trade overnight futures, we can see that we have a weak volume here, but right around 3 a.m. it picks up. So this would be the London session. And the same is true for the Asia session, where we have a 2-hour window where volume picks up. And trading around those is crucial for getting the most out of your trading sessions. And part of that is being picky. So not only do we want to trade in those higher volume time frames, but maybe even consider only trading on trend days. And I just did a video about this. And one thing we know, there's several ways to tell if it's going to be a trend day. I actually have several videos on this using volume profile or just price action levels. But for instance, in this example, we can see that when we broke the pre-market low, which was the low of price for that day, we just proceeded to stay in a trend the whole day. And that's usually the case. There's also some data we can look at. I do posts every day on Twitter to talk about where the range boundaries might be and where we could see reversals and expect our range to be. But if you stick to days that look like this, and you identify the trend days early, you can primarily trade those, and it will make your trading life a lot easier. Now, if you're going to trade range days, that's perfectly fine. I personally do not mind trading range days. They took practice to get to a point where I was comfortable. But if you do trade range days, try to stick to the boundaries of those sessions. So we can see up here we have a clear resistance point that we rejected off several times. We also could see that we got bought back up when we broke the lower boundaries, and we held that. If you stick to the highs and lows of a range session and just avoid the middle altogether, even if you take quick scalps only down to the next sensible level, that's perfectly fine. It will save you a lot of resets by being picky. And of course, when it comes to funded futures trading, it's more of a scalping thing. I mean, you can certainly use the 15-minute and the 30-minute time frames, but I prefer trading on anywhere from the 1 to the 5-minute, and I just use the higher time frames for figuring out where we're at on the chart and various levels that are notable and things like that. Also, you always want to avoid news events. So every day, make sure you go into Market Watch, figure out when the big news events are going to hit. We can see this week we have some on Thursday and Friday. I make sure I'm flat. I don't hold any positions into those news events. After the news hits, we see the market make a big move. And then at that point, I play a continuation, or sometimes there's a fair value gap that gets created, that gets filled. But the idea is we don't want to hold a position in here, because this can take out our account in one move. Even if we had the direction correct, oftentimes we'll see it go against the true direction first, and then move the way that we thought it might. But that can get you stopped out and actually cost you greatly, and potentially force you to have to reset when you really didn't need to. It's just best to be flat during these events and not to gamble. So another one is market awareness. I've done several videos on this, but the key is to, once you identify the asset you want to trade. So I prefer trading NQ assets like NASDAQ or the S&P 500. You can also do crude oil, or any of those high volume assets work very well. So if you're trading equities, here's my setup. I personally have a page where I have the VIX, SPX and SPY all in one page. So I can see where those are at, because ES moves the same way with these. ES has a reverse correlation to VIX, and it moves the same way that SPY and SPX does. And when I look at data for the day, I can see things like Vanna and dark pools and gamma, things like that on SPY and SPX. So I know that those will play a part in the way ES moves. I also like looking at the top sectors. I have a tab up for those, so I can peek at how the sectors are moving to see if they're trending, or if they're in a range, or what they're doing, to get an idea of how ES will move. And then, for instance, if I'm trading NASDAQ, I like having Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, and Amazon up, and same for ES, because those are some of the top holdings, and those greatly influence how that asset will move. In particular, Apple is a big driver of the ES and the NASDAQ. And if you're trading something else, if you're trading crude oil or another high volume commodity, just make sure you look up other correlations that are important to that commodity, and you watch those correlations, whether it be an inverse correlation or if it's a convergent correlation. Doesn't matter. Just make sure you find correlations so you have that market awareness. And we really want to try to maximize our best trade setup. So one of my favorite setups is an overnight NQ setup that I've done 2 videos on, actually, and I post about on Twitter when the setup presents itself. Tonight was a perfect example where we saw this potential POC rejection setting up, and the plan is, when we get in here and we see it get into this range that the high volume nodes surrounding the POC were a part of, that we would look to take shorts. And even if this was just a 9, which it was for me tonight, it was a 9-point hit, although I could have gotten more than 30 points, it seems. Unfortunately, I only caught the first part of the move, but despite that, even those 9 points with proper scaling can be significant. And if you catch the right move that you have high confidence in, and you've played several times, and you hit it hard enough, you can actually pass your evaluation in one trade. And so it's important to maximize those setups, know what they are, be comfortable with them. That goes with practice and paper trading, and then just really hit them as hard as you can to get the most out of those setups. And then lastly, this tool is about just having the proper tools for the job. And this goes with trading in general. I mean, all of these really do. Some of these are more geared towards scalping and day trading futures, but we want to make sure that we have the proper tools. So my personal favorite, if I could only choose one, would be the Sonar Labs Smart Money Concepts indicator, where it automatically shows me things like order blocks and fair value gaps and trendline liquidity and change of structures and volume imbalances and all kinds of incredible things. This is probably my favorite tool, and since I'm such a big fan of playing the chart, and the chart really doesn't lie, you learn how to read the chart, you learn how to read where smart money will inject liquidity at or try to consume liquidity, then you can really be hugely successful in the trading world. And so this indicator helps tremendously, but there's so many good options. We have tools like TradeView, Volland. Those are great for equities. If you just want to focus on futures, I would recommend tools like Bookmap or Vexly. Rocket Scooter is another good one for equities that can give us an edge. All these tools are fine. Pick your favorite or favorites and stick to them. I haven't talked about Vexly yet. It's an incredibly potent tool, especially when trading futures. I'm actually blown away by it. The problem is I'm still working to understand it myself because the data is very complex, but eventually one day I will talk about that because it is quite a game changer for futures trading. So anyway, those are the 9 tips I have. I hope you found those helpful. I hope you gained something from that, and hopefully at least one of these tips will help you pass your evaluation. And just keep in mind, if you do want to do an evaluation or use really any of the tools I mentioned, you can use my coupon code FATTYTRADES to get a discount with that. And that way you don't have to pay the full price. By default, you get 20% off. And if you actually do it during certain times of the year, I'm pretty sure there's probably going to be a New Year's promotion. You can get significantly more than that to make the evaluations extremely cheap. So again, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions or you need clarification, or if there's something I might be able to help you with when it comes to passing an evaluation, feel free to leave a comment or reach out. See you on the next one.